Captain Day stood in the center of the Galactic Council chamber, feeling the weight of 1,000 eyes upon him. The chamber was massive, built to hold representatives from over 300 species. Some breathed oxygen like humans, others floated in special containment fields filled with methane or lived in water tanks. The diversity of life in the galaxy never ceased to amaze him, but today he had no time for wonder. He wore the dark blue uniform of the Terran Defense Initiative, and his face was calm, though his heart was not. Next to him stood Commander Hirim, carrying a data pad that glowed with information humanity desperately needed the galaxy to hear. "Members of the Galactic Council," Day began, his voice steady and clear. "Humanity stands before you today to issue a formal warning under Article 7 of the Galactic Cooperation Treaty." A ripple of whispers moved through the chamber. Warnings under Article 7 were rare. They meant serious danger. From the Vrelian section of the chamber, a harsh laugh echoed. War Prime Keller, the leader of the Vrelian military forces, rose to his full height. He was impressive and frightening, standing nearly 3 meters tall with dark green scales that gleamed under the chamber lights. His species had conquered 22 worlds in the past century alone. "The humans wish to frighten us again," Keller said, his voice dripping with contempt. "Tell me, Captain, what terrible danger do you see in empty space this time?" Day did not react to the mockery. He had expected it. The Vrelians were proud, perhaps too proud. That pride might kill them all. "Commander Hirim will present our findings," Day said, stepping aside. Hirim touched her datapad, and holographic images filled the air above the council floor. The images showed a region of space marked in red, thousands of light years across. "This is Sector Grid 7, known commonly as the Forbidden Sectors," Hirim explained. Her voice was professional, showing no emotion. 300 years ago, humanity sealed these sectors and placed them under eternal quarantine. We have maintained defense platforms and warning beacons around this region ever since. "And why did you seal them?" asked Ambassador Yule, a 4-armed species known for their careful nature. "What is hidden there?" Hirim paused. When she spoke again, her voice was quieter. "During our consolidation wars, humanity created weapons. Terrible weapons. When the wars ended, we looked at what we had built and realized we had become monsters. We sealed everything away in the forbidden sectors. We deleted the detailed records. Many of the scientists who built these weapons chose to have their memories erased as punishment for what they had done." The chamber fell silent. Every species in the galaxy knew about humanity's dark past. Before joining the Galactic Council, humans had been at war with themselves for nearly a century. Billions had died. When humans finally achieved peace, they had done something no other species had ever done. They had turned on their own weapons, destroyed them, and sworn never to use such things again. "We sealed those sectors for a reason," Day said, his voice hard now. "What lies there is not treasure or technology to be claimed. It is danger, pure danger. We warn any species that enters those sectors. You will not survive what you find there." War Prime Keller laughed again, louder this time. "Humans think they alone understand warfare. You defeated yourselves and called it victory. The Vrelian Empire has never lost a war. Your sealed sectors are nothing but old human fear given form. We have detected Vrelian scout ships near the forbidden sectors," Hirim said, displaying new images. "We are asking formally that you turn your ships away. Whatever you think you will find there is not worth the cost." "The Vrelian Empire goes where it pleases," Keller declared. "We bow to no one, certainly not to a species of frightened apes who hide from their own shadows." Other species shifted uncomfortably in their seats. The Vrelians were powerful, yes, but everyone remembered the last time a species had ignored a human warning. The Carthex had been an aggressive civilization, expanding rapidly and refusing all diplomatic contact. When they had crossed into protected human space, humanity had issued a warning. The Carthex had ignored it. 72 hours later, the entire Carthex civilization had vanished. Every ship, every station, every settlement. Gone. When asked what happened, humanity had simply said, "They were warned." No one knew exactly what humanity had done, but the results were clear. After that incident, most species learned to take human warnings very seriously. Ambassador Nayun now stepped forward. She was older than Day and Hirim, with silver hair and eyes that had seen too much. She carried a small ceremonial box made of ancient wood from Earth. "I am filing this warning in the Galactic Archives," Nayun said, her voice carrying across the chamber. This is now official record. The Vrelian Empire has been warned about the dangers of the forbidden sectors. Under galactic law, humanity has fulfilled its obligation. What happens next is not our responsibility. She placed the box on the archive pedestal, and it glowed as the information was recorded forever in the galactic databanks. Keller's eyes narrowed. You threaten us? No, Na-Yun said simply. We warn you. There is a difference. A threat is something we would do to you. A warning is about something that will happen regardless of what we do. We cannot protect you from what lies in those sectors. We can barely protect ourselves from it. That is why we sealed it away. The Vrelian Empire fears nothing, Keller declared. He gestured to his attendants and they began to leave the chamber. We will claim the forbidden sectors within 1 month. We will prove that human fear is nothing but weakness. As the Vrelians departed, the chamber erupted in nervous conversation. Ambassador Yule approached the human delegation. Is it truly that dangerous? Yule asked quietly. Dee nodded slowly. It is worse than dangerous. The weapons we sealed away do not simply kill, they do things worse than death. We built them in a time when we had lost our humanity, when winning mattered more than morality. When the wars ended and we looked at what we had created, we were horrified by ourselves. Can you not stop them? Yule asked. Send your fleet? Under galactic law, we cannot violate Vrelian sovereignty, Na-Yun explained. We can only warn, not act. They must make their own choice. Even if that choice destroys them, especially then, Na-Yun said, her voice sad. Free will means the freedom to make terrible mistakes. We can only hope they listen. But in her heart, Na-Yun knew they would not listen. The Vrelians were too proud, too certain of their own strength. She had seen this pattern before. Species that had never truly lost, that had never faced something beyond their understanding, could not imagine their own defeat. Later that night, back on the human embassy ship, Day and Hiram sat in silence, looking at the star charts showing the forbidden sectors. They will not turn back, Hiram said. No, Day agreed. They will not. How many Vrelians will die? Day closed his eyes. Die? I wish they would only die. Death would be merciful compared to what awaits them in those sectors. Then we have to stop them, forcibly if necessary. And break galactic law? Start a war? Day shook his head. We made our choice 300 years ago. We chose to follow rules, to be better than we were. That means we must watch and wait. We gave them warning. The choice is theirs. Hiram stood and walked to the window looking out at the stars. I hate this. I hate knowing what is coming and being unable to stop it. That is the price of redemption, Day said quietly. We carry the burden of our past, but we do not repeat its mistakes. We warn, we wait, and we hope that others are wiser than we once were. 3 weeks later, the Vrelian Warfleet began its journey toward the forbidden sectors. 40,000 ships, the largest military operation in Vrelian history. They went proudly, certain of their victory. Humanity could only watch and remember that they too had once been that proud, that certain, that doomed by their own arrogance. The difference was that humanity had learned its lessons by nearly destroying itself. The Vrelians were about to learn a different kind of lesson entirely. Lieutenant Tejo sat in the observation post at the edge of the forbidden sectors, his eyes fixed on the sensor displays. The post was small, designed for only 12 personnel, but it was equipped with the most advanced detection technology humanity possessed. Every ship that came within a light year of the forbidden sectors would be detected. The alarm began to sound at Oro 600 hours station time. Sir, we have multiple contacts, called out Ensign Bora from the sensor station. Reading over 40,000 individual ship signatures. It's the Vrelian fleet. Tejo felt his stomach drop. He had hoped, foolishly perhaps, that the Vrelians would change their minds. Confirm identity and send immediate notification to Captain Day. Within minutes, the communication came through. Captain Day appeared on the screen, his face grim. They are really doing this, Day said, more to himself than to Tejo. Sir, we can deploy the defense platforms, Tejo suggested. Block their approach. Negative, Day replied. Under galactic law, we cannot use force to stop them. We can only observe and report. But sir, they are going to... I know what they are going to do, Lieutenant. Day interrupted, his voice sharp with frustration. But we must follow the law. We are not the monsters we once were. We do not attack sovereign vessels in open space even to save them from themselves. Tejo wanted to argue, but he understood. Humanity had made its choice long ago. They would be lawful, even when the law seemed cruel. Dr. Subin rushed into the command center, her face pale. She was a xenoarchaeologist assigned to the observation post to study the sealed installations from a safe distance. "They are heading straight for Installation Orpheus," Subin said breathlessly. "I have been tracking their trajectory. They are going to find it within 48 hours. "What is Installation Orpheus?" Tejo asked, though he was not sure he wanted to know. Subin pulled up old corrupted files on her datapad. It was one of the major weapons facilities from the Consolidation Wars. It was built inside a collapsed moon. The records are mostly deleted, but what little remains suggests it housed something that terrified even the scientists who built it. They sealed it and then erased their own memories of what it contained. "Can we warn the Vrelians again?" Tejo asked. "We have been broadcasting warnings continuously since they entered sensor range," Day said from the screen. "They are ignoring all hails." For the next 2 days, the observation post tracked the Vrelian fleet's progress. The ships moved with military precision, sweeping the forbidden sectors as they searched for whatever they thought would give them power. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, other species watched and worried. The Galactic Council held emergency sessions. Many species began evacuating settlements near the forbidden sectors, not because they feared the Vrelians, but because they feared what might happen when the Vrelians found what humanity had hidden. Ambassador Nayun attended one of these emergency sessions. She stood before the council, her face tired but resolute. "The Terran government requests that all species within 50 light-years of the forbidden sectors evacuate immediately," Nayun announced. "Is this a threat?" asked Representative Morn, a species of crystalline beings known for their logic. "It is a recommendation based on prudence," Nayun replied. "We do not know exactly what will happen when the Vrelians breach the sealed installations, but we know it will be dangerous." "Potentially very dangerous. Then stop them," shouted several delegates at once. Nayun's expression did not change. "We cannot. The Vrelian Empire is a sovereign nation. They were warned. They made their choice. Under galactic law, we cannot use military force to stop them from entering open space, even space we have marked as dangerous." "Even if they all die?" Ambassador Yule asked. "Even then," Nayun said quietly, "we learned a terrible lesson in our past. We learned that you cannot force salvation on others. You cannot make people be safe if they do not wish it. All we can do is warn them and prepare for the consequences of their choices." Back at the observation post, Intelligence Officer Jin Ho was monitoring Vrelian communications. Most of it was military chatter, standard operation protocols. But then he detected something different. "Sir, the Vrelians have found Installation Orpheus," Jin Ho reported. "They are beginning excavation procedures." On the main screen, they watched as the Vrelian fleet surrounded the collapsed moon. Mining ships deployed, their massive drills beginning to cut into the ancient rock. The humans had hidden their installation well, but the Vrelians were determined and well-equipped. "Send another warning," Day ordered. "Tell them they must stop immediately." The warning was sent. The response came back quickly, and it was from War Prime Keller himself. "Humans," Keller's voice boomed over the communication channel, "we have found your precious hidden technology. It is primitive, old, and worthless. Your warnings were nothing but attempts to keep power for yourselves. The Vrelian Empire claims this sector and all it contains. Please," Day said, and there was real desperation in his voice now. "You do not understand what you are about to unleash. That installation was sealed for a reason. If you breach the inner chambers, you will trigger systems we cannot control, systems that we barely understand even now." "Your fear is noted and ignored," Keller replied. "Vrelian engineering is superior to your ancient, crude technology. We will take what is here and use it as we see fit. This conversation is over." The channel closed. Dr. Subin was shaking. "They are going to open it. They are actually going to open Installation Orpheus. How long until they breach the inner seals?" Tejo asked. "At their current pace, maybe 6 hours," Subin calculated. "The outer layers are just standard reinforcement. But the inner seals are quantum locked. When they break those—" She trailed off, unable to finish the thought. Those 6 hours passed like a nightmare. The observation post tried repeatedly to contact the Vrelian fleet. Every attempt was ignored or rejected. Other species sent their own warnings, but the Vrelians were beyond listening now. They had invested too much, committed too many resources. To turn back now would be to admit defeat. Jin-Ho continued monitoring the Vrelian communications. He heard the excitement in their voices as they got closer to the inner chambers. They thought they were about to claim a great prize, technology that would make them unstoppable. They have reached the quantum seals, Jin-Ho reported. They are applying breaching charges. Everyone in the observation post held their breath. Subin gripped her datapad so hard her knuckles turned white. Taeho found himself praying to gods he did not believe in. The last transmission from the Vrelian fleet was a shout of triumph. "We are through. The inner chamber is open. We have found," then silence. Not the silence of a cut transmission. Not the silence of destroyed equipment. This was different. It was the silence of absence, as if the Vrelians had simply ceased to exist in the middle of their sentence. "Try to re-establish contact," Day ordered. Jin-Ho worked frantically at his console. "No response, sir. All Vrelian signatures have vanished from our sensors." "That is impossible," Taeho said. 40,000 ships cannot just vanish. "Check for debris, escape pods, anything," Day commanded. The sensor sweeps came back negative. There was no wreckage, no distress signals, no survivors. The Vrelian fleet had been there, and now it was not. As if someone had simply erased them from existence, sir, Bora said, her voice trembling. "There is one anomaly. The stars in that sector have changed color. They are shifting into the ultraviolet spectrum." Subin looked at her datapad, her face going even paler. "That is not normal stellar activity. Something is affecting the space-time in that entire region. Establish a quarantine perimeter," Day ordered. "No one goes near that sector. No one." Within hours, the news spread across the galaxy. The Vrelian war fleet, 40,000 ships strong, had vanished without a trace. The Vrelian homeworld was in chaos, demanding answers. Other species looked to humanity with fear and questions, and humanity could only respond with the truth. We warned them. But the truth was even more frightening than the mystery. Because deep down, in the classified records that only a few humans could access, there were fragments of information about Installation Orpheus, fragments that suggested the weapon inside was not designed to kill. It was designed to do something much, much worse. And now it had been activated. 3 days after the Vrelian fleet vanished, Scout Wu Jin guided his ship carefully toward the edge of the affected sector. His ship was small, designed for reconnaissance with the best shields and sensors humanity could provide. Even so, he felt terribly exposed. "Command, this is Scout 7, Wu Jin reported. "I am approaching the perimeter zone. Sensors are showing unusual readings." Captain Day's voice came through clearly. "Proceed with extreme caution, Scout 7. Do not cross into the affected zone under any circumstances. We need information, but not at the cost of your life." "Understood, sir." As Wu Jin's ship drew closer, the strangeness of the situation became more apparent. Space itself looked wrong. The stars had shifted color as reported, giving the entire region an eerie purple glow. But it was more than that. Space seemed to shimmer, like heat waves rising from hot ground, except there was no heat here. Only cold and something else, something that made Wu Jin's instruments give readings that should not be possible. "Command, I am reading spatial distortions across the entire sector. It is like the fabric of space has been altered somehow. And command, there is no debris. Nothing at all. 40,000 ships and not a single piece of wreckage. Any signs of life? Any signals?" "Negative, sir. Just empty space. But it is not normal empty space. It is like the Vrelian fleet was never here at all." Wu Jin deployed a probe, sending it deeper into the affected zone. The probe's data came back for 30 seconds, showing increasingly bizarre readings, and then it simply stopped transmitting. Not destroyed, just gone as if it had crossed some invisible boundary and ceased to exist. "Command, we lost the probe. Recommend we establish a hard perimeter at this distance. Whatever is happening in there, we cannot risk anyone else getting caught in it." Back on Earth, Coordinator Yujin was dealing with a different kind of chaos. Her communication console had not stopped flashing for 3 days. Every species in the galaxy wanted answers, and many were angry. "The Vrelian government is demanding we tell them what happened to their fleet," her assistant reported. "Tell them what we know," Yujin replied, though her voice was heavy with exhaustion, "which is very little. They are threatening military action if we do not provide answers." Yujin laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Military action? Against whom? We did not do this. They did it to themselves by ignoring our warnings." But she understood their pain and anger. 40,000 ships meant hundreds of thousands of Vrelians, all with families, all now missing. The Vrelian Empire was facing the greatest catastrophe in its history, and they needed someone to blame. Humanity was the obvious target. Meanwhile, scientist Hyun led a team deep in the archives beneath Earth's surface, searching for any information about Installation Orpheus. The archives were old, maintained in physical form because digital records could be hacked or corrupted. Here, in temperature-controlled vaults, humanity kept the few remaining records of its darkest period. "I found something," called out researcher Min from across the vault. "It is a partial file from Dr. Han, one of the lead scientists on the Orpheus project." Hyun rushed over, reading the old text carefully. The document was fragmentary. Large sections had been deliberately erased, but what remained was chilling. Project Orpheus was never meant to be a weapon in the traditional sense. Hyun read aloud. Its purpose was to eliminate conflict permanently by addressing the root cause of all war, the concept of opposition itself. The device is a quantum probability engine designed to rewrite fundamental aspects of consciousness and existence. "What does that mean?" Min asked. Hyun continued reading, his face growing paler. "It means they built something that could change how species think and feel at a basic level. Not brainwashing or mind control. Something deeper. It rewrites what you are. That is not possible. Apparently it was, and apparently it worked, because Dr. Han's last entry says, 'We have created the most terrible weapon in history, not because it kills, but because it makes you wish you were dead. Or worse, it makes you forget you should wish that. We must seal it away. We must forget we ever built it.'" Hyun looked up from the document. "This is why the scientists erased their own memories. They could not live with what they had created." He immediately sent the information to Captain Day and Ambassador Na-Yun. The implications were horrifying, but the galaxy needed to know the truth. Or did it? That question was debated in a secret meeting held on the human embassy ship. Day, Na-Yun, Haerim, Subin, and a handful of other senior officials gathered in a secure room. "We have to tell them," Subin argued. "The Galactic Council deserves to know what happened to the Vrelians." "Do they?" Na-Yun countered. "Think about what we would be saying. We would be admitting that humanity once possessed technology capable of rewriting entire species at a quantum level. Do you understand how other species would react to that information?" "They would be terrified," Haerim said quietly. "More than terrified. They would see us as an existential threat," Na-Yun continued. "Right now they fear us because they do not understand what happened. If they knew the truth, that fear would turn to panic. Some species would call for our extermination, claiming we are too dangerous to exist. Others would try to develop similar weapons to protect themselves, starting a new arms race that could destroy the galaxy." "So we lie?" Subin asked. "No," Day said firmly. "We do not lie. But we do not have to tell them everything either. We can say the Vrelians are lost, that they encountered something beyond our understanding or control. That is true in a way. Even we do not fully understand what Installation Orpheus does." "What about the Vrelians themselves?" asked Admiral G1, who had joined the meeting via secure channel. "What actually happened to them?" Subin pulled up her analysis on a display screen. "Based on the sensor data and what little we know about the quantum probability engine, I believe the Vrelians were not destroyed. They were transformed. The engine rewrote their fundamental nature, changing them into something else. Something that can no longer exist in normal spacetime." "Are they suffering?" Day asked. "I do not think so. That is part of what makes it so horrible. The engine was designed to make its victims happy, content, and peaceful. They are not aware that anything is wrong because from their new perspective, nothing is wrong. They have been fundamentally changed to experience only peace and unity." The room fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. "So they are alive, in a sense, but completely different from what they were," Haerim said. "And they have no idea anything happened to them." "Correct. From their perspective, they achieved enlightenment or transcendence. They would not want to come back even if we could bring them back." "That is monstrous," Admiral G1 said. "It is a violation so complete that death would be merciful by comparison." "Yes," Na-Yun agreed. "And that is why we sealed it away 300 years ago. Our ancestors looked at what they had built and realized they had become something evil. That realization, that moment of self-awareness, is what saved humanity. We chose to be better. But now the question is, what do we tell everyone else?" Day brought the conversation back to the immediate problem. After hours of debate, they reached a decision. They would tell the Galactic Council that the Vrelian fleet had encountered a phenomenon beyond recovery or understanding. They would provide some historical context about humanity's past weapons, enough to explain why the sectors were sealed, but not so much that it would trigger galaxy-wide panic. The next day, the Galactic Council held another emergency session. Ambassador Naun stood before them, and the weight of what she had to say showed in every line of her face. The Terran government has completed its investigation into the Vrelian fleet's disappearance, Nayun began. We can confirm that the fleet encountered one of the sealed installations from our consolidation wars. This installation contained technology designed not to kill, but to fundamentally alter those who activated it. What happened to them? Demanded the Vrelian ambassador, his voice shaking with grief and rage. Nayun met his eyes. They are lost, not dead but changed beyond any possibility of recovery. The technology they activated has transformed them into something we cannot retrieve or restore. I am sorry. We warned them this would happen. We warned them that what lay in those sectors was worse than death. They did not listen. This is murder, the Vrelian ambassador shouted. You built this trap and let us walk into it. We did not let you do anything, Naun replied, her voice calm but firm. We tried to stop you. We issued official warnings. We broadcasted continuous alerts as your fleet approached. We begged you to turn back. You ignored us. Under galactic law, we could not use force to stop you. The choice to enter the forbidden sectors was yours. The consequences are also yours. The chamber erupted in arguments, accusations, and fear. But beneath it all, every species present understood the truth. Humanity had tried to warn them. The Vrelians had paid the price for their arrogance. And somewhere in the depths of space, in a region where stars shone purple and reality itself had been rewritten, the Vrelians existed in a state of perfect peace and unity, completely unaware that they had lost everything that made them who they were. 3 months had passed since the Vrelian fleet vanished, and the galaxy had not returned to normal. How could it? 40,000 ships and their crews had simply disappeared, and the only explanation was that humanity had once built something so terrible that even death would have been preferable. Admiral Jiwan stood on the bridge of the research vessel Prometheus, the most advanced ship in the human fleet. She had authorized one final probe mission, this time using technology that had been classified for nearly 3 centuries. If they were going to understand what had truly happened to the Vrelians, they needed to see inside the affected zone. Dr. Subin, is the probe ready? Jiwan asked. Subin looked up from her console, her face drawn from months of sleepless nights. Since the incident, she had been obsessed with understanding Installation Orpheus. The mystery haunted her dreams. The probe is equipped with quantum shielding and recursive observation protocols, Subin explained. It should be able to observe the affected zone without being pulled in. At least that is what our models suggest. Should and will are 2 different things, Jiwan noted. Yes, Admiral, but we need to know. The families of those Vrelians need to know. Even if the truth is terrible, it is better than uncertainty. Jiwan nodded. Launch the probe! The probe shot forward, crossing into the purple-tinged region of space where the Vrelian fleet had disappeared. Data began streaming back immediately, and what it showed made everyone on the bridge go silent. I am reading energy patterns consistent with quantum probability fields, Subin said, her voice shaking. And, Admiral, I am detecting biosignatures. The Vrelians are there. They are alive. Can we establish communication? Jiwan asked. Negative. They are not existing in normal spacetime anymore. They have been converted into a form of distributed consciousness. They are spread across the stellar medium, existing as patterns of energy and information rather than physical beings. Show me, Jiwan ordered. The main screen displayed what the probe was seeing. It was beautiful and horrifying at the same time. Streams of light flowed through space, weaving patterns that seemed almost like a dance. The patterns pulsed with a rhythm that felt almost like a heartbeat, or perhaps many heartbeats synchronized into one. That is them, Subin whispered. That is what is left of the Vrelian fleet. Captain Day joined them on the bridge, summoned urgently when the probe's data started coming in. He watched the screen in silence for a long moment. Can they think? Day asked. Are they aware? Subin studied the data carefully. Yes, they are aware. In fact, they are more aware than before, in a sense. They are experiencing a form of collective consciousness. Every Vrelian in that fleet is now part of a unified whole. They share thoughts, emotions, experiences. They are completely connected. Are they in pain? No. According to these readings, they are experiencing something close to bliss. Perfect harmony, perfect peace. They have no concept of conflict, no sense of separation, no fear or anger or greed. The quantum probability engine did exactly what it was designed to do. It eliminated all opposition by making them incapable of feeling opposition. Jiwan felt sick. This is what our ancestors built? This is the weapon we were so proud of? During the Consolidation Wars, humanity was divided, Day said quietly. Different factions, different beliefs, all willing to destroy each other completely. Someone, somewhere, had the idea that if they could just make everyone think the same way, feel the same way, the war would end. So they built Installation Orpheus, and it worked, did it not? Subin said bitterly. It ended conflict permanently. By destroying everything that makes a species individual, by taking away choice, free will, the ability to disagree or question, it created perfect peace by eliminating everything that makes life worth living. Engineer Tejo, who had been monitoring the probe systems, suddenly called out, "Admiral, we are getting strange readings from the probe itself. It is being affected by the quantum field. Retrieve it immediately," Jiwan ordered. But it was too late. The probe began transmitting garbled data, and then it stopped. Like the Vrelian fleet before it, the probe had been absorbed into the quantum probability field. "This changes everything," Day said. "The affected zone is expanding. Slowly, but definitely expanding. Whatever installation Orpheus released, it is growing." "How long before it reaches inhabited systems?" Jiwan asked. Subin ran the calculations, her fingers flying across her console. "At current rates, approximately 30 years. But if the expansion accelerates, it could be much sooner." The implications were staggering. They had not just lost the Vrelian fleet. They had potentially unleashed something that could consume the entire galaxy, transforming every sentient being into part of a collective consciousness whether they wanted it or not. That night, Day called an emergency meeting of the senior command staff. They gathered in a secure conference room and the mood was grim. "We have to contain it," Commander Hiram said immediately. "Whatever it takes, we cannot let that quantum field expand beyond the forbidden sectors." "Contain it how?" asked Tejo. "We do not even understand what it is, not really. How do you contain a force that operates outside normal physics?" "We do what our ancestors should have done," Day said. "We destroy it, completely." "That would mean destroying the transformed Vrelians as well," Subin pointed out. "They are still alive in their way." "Are they, though?" Hiram challenged. "The beings that entered that sector were Vrelian soldiers with families, hopes, fears, and dreams. What exists now is not them. It is something wearing their quantum signature. They have been robbed of everything that made them individuals. But they are happy," Subin argued, though her voice was weak. "According to the data, they are experiencing joy and contentment beyond anything they knew in their previous existence." "Happiness forced upon you is not real happiness," Day said. "It is slavery with a smile. Our ancestors understood this eventually. That is why they sealed Installation Orpheus instead of using it to win the Consolidation Wars. They realized that some victories are worse than defeat." "What do we tell the Galactic Council?" Admiral Jiwan asked. "What do we tell the Vrelian government?" "We tell them the truth," Day decided. "Not all of it, but enough. We tell them that their people have been transformed into a state of collective consciousness, that they cannot be recovered, and that the effect is spreading. We tell them that humanity is prepared to contain the situation, but that it will require extreme measures. They will ask what kind of measures, Hiram noted. Then we will tell them. We will quarantine the entire region and establish a permanent containment field. If that fails, we will be forced to collapse that section of space entirely. Better to destroy the affected region than let it spread to inhabited worlds." Subin looked horrified. "You would destroy them? Even knowing they are still alive?" "I would save billions of other lives," Day replied. "That is the terrible choice we face. We can respect the existence of what the Vrelians have become, or we can protect the freedom of every other species in the galaxy. We cannot do both." The room fell silent. Everyone understood the weight of what Day was saying. This was exactly the kind of impossible choice that humanity had faced during the Consolidation Wars, the kind of choice that had led them to build weapons like Installation Orpheus. In the first place, there has to be another way, Subin insisted. If you find one, I will gladly take it, Day said. But we cannot risk the entire galaxy on hope. We tried hope once 300 years ago. We hoped that burying our terrible weapons would be enough. We hoped no one would be foolish enough to ignore our warnings. Hope failed. Now we must be prepared to do what is necessary. The next day, Day presented their findings to a select group of Galactic Council members. The response was predictable. Fear, anger, accusations, and demands for action. The Vrelian government representatives were especially devastated to learn that their people still existed, but could never return to what they had been. But beneath the chaos and emotion, a consensus began to form. The quantum probability field had to be contained. No species wanted to risk being transformed against their will, no matter how peaceful and happy that existence might be. Free will, even with all its conflicts and suffering, was too precious to surrender. Humanity offered to take full responsibility for the containment. After all, it was their weapon that had caused this disaster. The council agreed, perhaps too quickly. They were relieved to have someone else take on this terrible burden. As the meeting ended, Ambassador Nayun remained behind with the Vrelian representatives. She wanted to offer some comfort, some hope. But what could she say? Their people were gone, transformed into something alien and unreachable. I am sorry, Nayun said simply. We tried to warn you. We tried to stop this. I know that does not help now, but it is the truth. The chief Vrelian representative looked at her with eyes full of pain. You built this thing. You created a weapon that does not kill but steals souls. How do you live with that? We do not live with it, Nayun replied honestly. We carry it like a wound that never heals. We remember what we were and work every day to be better. That is all we can do. Remember, regret, and try to prevent others from making our mistakes. And when they do not listen? 6 months after the Vrelian fleet disappeared, the Galactic Council gathered for what many called the most important session in recorded history. The massive chamber was filled beyond capacity, with representatives from every member species present. The question before them was simple but profound. What would they do about the Vrelians? Ambassador Nayun stood at the center of the chamber, her silver hair gleaming under the lights. She looked older than she had 6 months ago, worn down by the weight of responsibility and grief. Behind her stood Captain Day, Commander High Rim, and Admiral Jiwan, representing the united front of humanity's leadership. Members of the Galactic Council, Nayun began, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. The Terran government has completed its analysis of the situation in the forbidden sectors. We are prepared to present our findings and our recommendations. The chamber fell silent. Every being present wanted to hear this, whether from fear, curiosity, or hope for their missing neighbors. The Vrelian fleet is not destroyed, Nayun continued. They exist, but in a form that we can no longer recognize as their original selves. The technology they activated has transformed them at a quantum level, converting their individual consciousnesses into a collective entity that exists across space itself. They are aware they are alive, but they are no longer Vrelians in any meaningful sense. A wave of murmurs spread through the chamber. The Vrelian representative sat in stunned silence. Can they be changed back? Asked Ambassador Yule, speaking the question everyone was thinking. No, Nayun replied, and the finality in her voice left no room for hope. The transformation is permanent. More than that, it is self-sustaining and expanding. The quantum probability field is growing slowly, and if left unchecked, it will eventually encompass inhabited systems. Any being that enters the field will be transformed just as the Vrelians were. Then we must destroy it, said Representative Morn, the crystalline being whose species valued logic above all else. It is a threat to the entire galaxy. That is one option, Nayun acknowledged. Humanity has the capability to collapse that section of space, which would destroy the quantum field and everything within it. But doing so would also destroy what remains of the Vrelian fleet, and there are ethical considerations with that action. They are already gone, said a voice from the Vrelian section. It was First Minister Cora, the acting leader of the Vrelian government. She stood slowly, her scales dulled by grief. What exists in that field is not our people. They have been stolen from us, transformed into something we do not recognize. If destroying that abomination is what keeps the rest of the galaxy safe, then we support that action. The chamber erupted in conversation. Other species debated the morality of destroying conscious beings, even transformed ones. Some argued for containment, others for immediate action. The chaos lasted for nearly an hour before Na-Yun raised her hand for silence. The Terran government proposes a different solution, Na-Yun said. We propose that the forbidden sectors be declared a permanent exclusion zone under joint oversight of the Galactic Council and the Terran Defense Initiative. We will establish containment fields using our most advanced technology to prevent the quantum field from expanding. We will monitor it continuously, and we will accept full responsibility for maintaining this containment for as long as necessary. Why would you do this? Cora asked. Why not simply destroy it? Because we built the weapon that caused this, Day stepped forward to answer. 300 years ago, during our darkest hour, humanity created things we should never have created. We looked at conflict and decided the solution was to eliminate free will itself. We were wrong. Terribly, unforgivably wrong. We sealed those weapons away, but we did not destroy them. That was our failure, and we must live with the consequences. This is not your fault, Ambassador Yule said gently. You warned the Vrelians. They chose to ignore you. That does not absolve us, Day replied. We created the trap. Yes, they walked into it willingly, but we built it. We have a responsibility to ensure no one else suffers the same fate. That means containment, monitoring, and eternal vigilance. After days of debate, the Galactic Council voted. The decision was nearly unanimous. The forbidden sectors would be declared a permanent exclusion zone. A new designation would be created in galactic law, lost to the dark between stars, a category for species or beings that had encountered forces beyond recovery or understanding. The Vrelian Empire, officially, would be declared partially lost. The Vrelians on their homeworld and colonies would continue to exist, but the 40,000 who had entered the forbidden sectors would be considered gone forever. It was a compromise between hope and reality, between acknowledging what had happened and allowing the survivors to move forward. First Minister Cora approached Na-Un after the vote. The two leaders stood together in silence for a long moment. I do not forgive you, Cora said quietly. I cannot. You built the weapon that stole my people. I understand, Na-Un replied. We do not forgive ourselves either. But I acknowledge that you tried to stop this. You warned us repeatedly. We did not listen. Perhaps our pride was as much a weapon as anything you built. Cora paused, struggling with her emotions. Will you tell me something truthfully? Are they suffering? Na-Un met her eyes. No. They are experiencing something close to perfect bliss. They have no memory of pain, no sense of loss, no awareness that anything is wrong. From their perspective, they have achieved something close to paradise. That makes it worse somehow, Cora said, tears forming in her eyes. They are happy in their prison. They do not even know they are prisoners. Yes, Na-Un agreed softly. That is exactly what makes it so monstrous. Death would have been merciful by comparison. This is a violation so complete that the victims cannot even comprehend what they have lost. 2 weeks later, Lieutenant Teho and Dr. Subin took up their permanent posts at the Forbidden Sector Watch Station. The station was massive, equipped with the most advanced technology humanity possessed. Around it orbited a fleet of defensive platforms, containment generators, and monitoring systems. This is our life now, Subin said, looking out at the purple-tinged region of space that held the transformed Vrelians. Watching over the consequences of our ancestors' mistakes. Someone has to do it, Teho replied. Better us than someone who does not understand the weight of this responsibility. They were not alone. Thousands of human personnel staffed the watch station and its supporting facilities. All volunteers, all willing to dedicate their lives to ensuring that Installation Orpheus's horror was contained. It was, they all understood, a form of penance. Back on Earth, Captain Day returned to his duties with the Terran Defense Initiative. But the Vrelian incident had changed things. The galaxy now looked at humanity with a new kind of fear, a deeper understanding of just how dangerous humans could be when pushed to extremes. A month after the declaration, Day was called to the Galactic Council again. This time it was to deliver another warning. A young species, confident and aggressive, was planning to explore an unmarked region of space that humanity had quietly designated as dangerous. Day stood before the council and delivered his warning with the same calm professionalism he had shown with the Vrelians. He explained the dangers, provided historical context, and formally logged the warning in the galactic archives. The young species representative listened politely, but dismissed the concerns. They were advanced, they said. They were careful. They would not make the same mistakes as the Vrelians. As the representative left the chamber, Dave felt a crushing sense of inevitability. He looked at Ambassador Nyan, who stood beside him. They are not going to listen, Dave said quietly. No, Nyan agreed. They are not. Just as the Vrelians did not listen. Just as the Carthax did not listen. Just as dozens of other species have not listened over the centuries. Then why do we keep warning them? Because it is all we can do, Nyan said. We cannot stop them by force without becoming the monsters we once were. We cannot prevent every species from making terrible mistakes. All we can do is warn them, prepare for the consequences, and hope that eventually, others learn from these tragedies. It is a heavy burden. Yes, but it is ours to carry. We earned it through our actions 300 years ago. We built weapons that should never have existed. We created horrors beyond imagination. Now we must spend eternity trying to prevent others from suffering because of our mistakes. Far out in the forbidden sectors, in the purple-tinged region where reality had been rewritten, the transformed Vrelians existed in their state of perfect unity. They danced through space as patterns of light and energy, experiencing joy and harmony beyond what words could describe. They had no memory of who they had been, no sense of what they had lost. To them, this was not a tragedy but an evolution, an ascension to something greater. But to everyone watching from outside, it was a horror story with no ending. A reminder that some victories are worse than any defeat, and that the greatest dangers are not always the ones that destroy you, but the ones that make you forget you should have wanted to remain yourself. And so humanity stood watch, as they had for 300 years and would for 300 more.